I thought life would be easy after marrying a doctor. You're probably imagining big money coming in and vacations funded by pharma companies, right? But no, I joined her career at the wrong time. Let me share a story with you. I crossed paths with Karen while we were attending different community colleges to save money. She was incredibly smart and articulate, able to discuss almost any topic she had ever read about. However, she was also somewhat naive, perhaps more trusting than wise. Practical tasks weren't her strong suit. Tuition fees at junior colleges were way lower than at four-year institutions, and finances were a big concern for us. My dad, who had only a grade school education but learned a lot from life's tough experiences, worked as a general contractor. He often struggled to make ends meet despite having plenty of work. Growing up, I worked alongside him and saw his flaws clearly. He was a tough, no-nonsense kind of guy who didn't take well to advice and tended to dismiss people he thought were too clever for their own good, even if they were smarter than him. Unfortunately, he failed to realize the importance of having smart individuals around him and often took on more jobs than he could handle alone. Consequently, his projects rarely stayed within budget, and he unintentionally limited the growth of his company. I was determined not to follow his footsteps. I saw education as my way out. Coincidentally, Karen and I met during summer school a couple of months before we both transferred to a university in Massachusetts. I took advantage of a self-directed studies program and enrolled in mechanical and civil engineering courses, along with classes in chemistry, history, and civics. You understand where I'm coming from. I took extra classes because it didn't cost more, and as long as I got A's or B's, I was satisfied. With that mix of courses, I learned how to write well, think logically, and identify the core of a problem. I gained a lot of knowledge in subjects that interested me and didn't care much about the ones that didn't. Karen, on the other hand, was on the pre-med track, taking a light course load and aiming for straight A's, which is crucial for doctors. We don't want a doctor who only knows 70 to 80% of what's wrong with us. I saw college as more than just a pathway to a career. I viewed it as a school for life skills. I wanted to become the successful contractor my dad never could be. I wanted to learn everything I needed to know, and then some. We both graduated with bachelor's degrees simultaneously. Karen was fortunate. Despite having no family connections in the medical field and lacking influential recommendations, a medical school in Philadelphia accepted her and offered her a modest scholarship. We moved to Philadelphia and got married that summer. I broke free from my dad's influence, trading his strict control for Karen's more gentle one. Her father clearly recognized her promising future and my potential for financial ruin and failure. He emphasized the importance of a prenuptial agreement to her. Additionally, he generously gave us a 20% down payment on the house of our choice as a wedding present. Well, technically, it was her gift alone, and he didn't expect us to buy a house anytime soon, if ever. He wasn't known for being generous with money. I agreed to the terms of the agreement, but for the sake of fairness, I insisted that it be equally beneficial for both of us. She couldn't ask for child support, alimony, or any of my money. I also proposed that we wouldn't be responsible for each other's debts. She hesitated at first because she had significant school debts, but I explained that if my contracting business failed and creditors came after me personally, she could end up liable for those debts too. That settled the argument. Her dad was pleased that his family was protected from my potential financial troubles. Well, forget him. We lived 300 miles away from him and I only saw him occasionally. We began our marriage with separate credit cards and bank accounts. As time went on, I ended up managing our finances, earning the money, paying the bills, and writing the checks for both of us. I also set up a system to keep track of where our income was going. She didn't earn much during school, so dividing the income was more of a theoretical exercise. Philadelphia was good to me. I found a good job with a contractor and spent 2 years getting to know the area and supporting both of us. Meanwhile, she was accumulating significant student loans, which she'd have to start paying off after graduation. But hey, no worries, right? Doctors make big bucks. Against my wife's advice, I decided to strike out on my own. My father-in-law called me foolish. I can't really hold it against him as my dad said the same thing. I'm proud to say that I started making money right away. It helped that Karen and I were equally dedicated to our careers, putting in long hours. It was a lot of effort for both of us. The time we spent together was precious. Since I had more flexibility with my schedule, I made sure to be there whenever she had time off. It was tough, but we were young, strong, and deeply in love. Karen planned her pregnancy so she'd give birth a month after graduating, and she pretty much hit her target. We welcomed a beautiful baby girl. Her residency was even more demanding than medical school in terms of time. She was like an underpaid servant at the hospital devoted to medicine. I jokingly called it handmade medicine, suggesting it was made by hand rather than the god of medicine, Asclepius. I nicknamed him Fred Syphilis, making light of the mistakes and issues in medicine. Looking back, I'm not sure our marriage really survived her residency. You've heard about residents hooking up during night shifts, right? Well, I doubt she did because she was so exhausted that she might as well have been an ice block. It was a tough, lonely time for me, but I found solace in my daughter and my growing business. Unfortunately, we grew accustomed to not having each other around. Her internship and later her medical practice easily ate up 55 to 60 hours per week, and the hours were all over the place. I continued to look after our daughter, managing both work and home life with a day planner. Keeping track of our daughter's schedule, along with my wife's and mine, was quite a task. Ensuring her well-being was my priority, especially since she spent so much time with strangers. To address this, I relocated my office to a storefront I bought cheaply, right across from the daycare center. I hired a kindly woman named Mildred, who acted as my office manager. Although there wasn't much work to keep her busy full-time, she proposed to watch my daughter during the last 3 hours of the workday. My daughter and I were both thrilled with the arrangement. When my wife's internship ended, we enjoyed a couple of weeks at the shore before she started working as a family physician in a suburban practice. She was eager to buy a house, especially with banks and mortgage brokers offering no money-down mortgages and no credit checks. With her steady income, she chose a new house, although I preferred an older one built between 1900 and 1940. Ultimately, her father's wedding gift served as her end-of-residency present as well, providing a $30,000 down payment on a $700,000 mansion, covering taxes and closing costs. At a 7% interest rate, the mortgage came out to $4,500 per month. When factoring in taxes, heating costs, upkeep, car expenses, and various insurances, the total monthly bill rose to $6,500. On top of that, her student loan payments added another $5,000 each month. I tried to convince her to aim for a more modest house around $250,000, $300,000, but she insisted, saying this was what she had been working towards all these years. Despite years of frugal living, she wanted to splurge everything on a house and continue living frugally. It seemed crazy to me. We're young, I argued. This is the time to enjoy life, not be shackled to a huge house. Unfortunately, I didn't win the argument. To make matters worse, over the next 3 years, she took out equity loans to furnish the house with flashy, low-quality furniture. It bothered me to see the beautiful traditional furniture I inherited from my uncle relegated to the dining room and a spare bedroom. Getting into this much debt seemed irrational. In my business, I was vigilant about debt because being undercapitalized can spell disaster. Business was booming, and I wanted more time with my family, so I decided to relocate my office closer to home. Then an opportunity arose. I was working on a major project, restoring a Grand Gatsby-era mansion. I had already invested over $350,000 in structural and exterior work. Unfortunately, the owner faced financial troubles and had to sell. He owed me $110,000, but he didn't have the funds to settle, even though some of it was for materials that were contracted but not yet used. There was a charming gatehouse and carriage shed located about 10 minutes away from my home. It sat on an acre of land, mostly rocky hillside, but with a pleasant view. It was linked to the main estate by a 25-foot right-of-way that wasn't being used. It was simple to separate this property from the mansion. Despite appearing to be in worse shape than they were, I offered to buy it for what he owed me plus $45,000 cash. He eagerly accepted, and after completing my ongoing work, I established a straw company to purchase the property. I converted the carriage shed into offices, keeping the original exterior intact due to its historical significance, including the arched double doors, which left the option open for future use as a garage. Once my new office was ready, I started renovating the gatehouse. During slow periods, I had my crew work on the house. My wife, however, seemed oblivious to my business activities. When I showed her the new office, she assumed I was renting it and showed little interest, not even asking about the cost. She dismissed the place as old-fashioned and suggested tearing it down to build something nicer. It made me question my decision to marry her seriously. I pondered ending the marriage, but I acknowledged that every marriage has its ups and downs. I made an effort to praise and pay attention to her, hoping for the best. Socially, we had a circle of friends, including some doctors and others from well-to-do backgrounds, business leaders, and nonprofit managers. Well, we weren't exactly wealthy, but we weren't exactly middle class either. If you didn't know about the debt she was carrying, you'd think we were doing great. Some doctors didn't feel comfortable socializing with me, and some engineers and business types couldn't relate to my wife, who was a doctor. Over time, my wife started spending more time with people from the medical field. We found a few couples we both got along with. I also noticed a change in our relationship. More and more, I was the one taking care of home and family matters. Whenever her schedule changed, I had to adjust mine and cover for her. It was something I had always done, but it became more frequent. If the doctor was running late, I had to drop what I was doing and pick up our daughter. Sometimes she would cancel plans with me or our daughter at the last minute. I understand that being a doctor is important, but we were her family. It was clear who came first. Mildred didn't complain, but she ended up doing more childcare than I thought was appropriate. It's common to be interrupted by others in modern life. I receive calls from job sites and suppliers after hours. I have 2 cell phones, one for work and one personal, and my wife has her phone. Almost all of the after-hours calls I get are resolved quickly, within a couple of minutes on the phone. For years, except when she was on call, it was the same for my wife. But things changed in late summer. Her phone would ring and she'd have to rush off to the hospital. It comes with being a doctor, right? She worked as a family doctor in a big clinic and they all shared the on-call duty, but it seemed like she was doing more than her fair share of shifts. One hot Saturday in September, we both spent the afternoon doing yard work and fixing up the house. We were sweaty and dirty, so we showered before dinner. I hinted at some intimacy, but she promised we'd have a good time later. That was fine with me. After dinner, we sat on the patio, sipping coffee and enjoying the sounds of kids playing nearby. This is the life, I thought. Around 7:30, her pager went off. Karen sighed, checked the message, and said, "I need to go to the hospital. I should change first." She looked neat, wearing a clean white t-shirt with a Red Cross emblem, and the words, "Give blood for life." She had on white shorts and bright red sneakers. I asked her why she needed to change again when she would have to change into hospital clothes once she got there, but she seemed distracted. "Oh, right. Yeah, I should get going. I'll be back when I can." A little after 8, our daughter Carrie came home, exhausted and covered in dirt from playing hard. "You're a mess. Let's go get some ice cream." "Then it's bath time for you," I added. Carrie giggled and then called her friend Jennifer to tell her about our ice cream outing. We had to drive across town because only Smedley's ice cream parlor, which served homemade ice cream, would do. It was a treat for all of us. I sat on a bench outside Smedley's enjoying my pistachio ice cream cone and watching the moms in their light summer clothes. Then I saw something rare, an Indian motorcycle, a 1948 Chief model, painted bright yellow with white accents and gleaming chrome. It passed by with a deep, throaty rumble that modern bikes can't match. I knew it well because my older brother had a detailed miniature version that I admired as a kid. The rider, a slightly overweight man, wore jeans, a denim jacket, and black leather boots. His passenger, a woman, held on tightly, wearing an American flag helmet and a Red Cross t-shirt. The summer evening was getting cooler, and she might regret not wearing a jacket later. It was hard to act carefree after that. The kids, though, were too busy laughing and playing to notice my mood. I felt guilty, but secretly relieved, that I forgot to mail her student loan payment. Most of that money came from my pocket, and it would have been a waste. From now on, I decided not to pay for anything that belonged to her. Covering the costs of her house, car, and other expenses would quickly drain her bank accounts. I continued to pay her bills, but only from her own account. By Monday morning, I had already hired a divorce lawyer. He agreed to review the prenup, but since he knew the lawyer who drafted it, he anticipated it being solid. However, he acknowledged that legal agreements can sometimes be challenged. While evidence of adultery wasn't necessary, it could potentially be useful in custody disputes, although he considered the likelihood of such a situation slim, noting that mothers typically have the upper hand in custody battles. Next, I called a friend who was knowledgeable about antique cars. Indian Chief motorcycles are both valuable and rare, and riding one is almost a celebrity-like experience. He had no doubts. The bike likely belonged to Dr. Alfred Hale, a prominent figure at the hospital. With that information, things became clearer. My third call was to an investigator recommended by my insurance agent. His name was Sammy R. Patel, but he went by Sam. I didn't think it necessary for him to tail my wife, as I suspected she was only involved with one person. However, Dr. Hale might be a different story, and I sought retribution. I provided Sam with what I knew about Dr. Hale and paid a $3,000 deposit for his services. I requested photos, audio recordings, and video footage if possible. Additionally, I advised him to be discreet, as Dr. Hale had the financial means to cause trouble once he realized he was under investigation. I made my fourth call to one of my site managers, instructing him to ramp up work and prioritize finishing the gatehouse to secure an occupancy permit. Besides that, it was a typical day, and I tried to maintain a sense of normalcy. I figured it would take about 2-3 weeks to smoothly wrap up our marriage. Later that evening, while having a quiet moment over coffee, my wife informed me that she would be attending a medical conference in New York sponsored by Merck the following Friday and Saturday. She mentioned they'd be staying at one of New York's top hotels, the Greenpoint Plaza. I checked on my iPhone and discovered that the hotel was actually located in Brooklyn, not Manhattan, and it seemed decent but not luxurious. It was priced at $110 a night, which seemed surprisingly low. I doubted the accuracy and told her it seemed more like a standard hotel, not a high-end one. That night, we had marital relations for the first time in a long while, a moment I viewed as a personal lapse. I discreetly used a protection, and she didn't notice. The Wednesday before her conference was eventful, as I met with my lawyer to review the divorce papers. He advised safeguarding my business finances in case the prenuptial agreements, which he believed were solid, were challenged. He expressed uncertainty regarding child support, regardless of the prenup's terms. I argued that I wanted to support my child, but the lawyer advised against court mandates. He emphasized the importance of avoiding legal intervention. My accountant needed a couple of weeks to conceal the cash reserve I had in the business. I joked about contractors usually wanting to create money out of thin air, not the other way around, and urged him to hide 75% of it within a week. Later that afternoon, I met the investigator for the first time at a Starbucks. He explained that he operates from home to maintain anonymity. "Mr. Harlow, this is Rich," he introduced himself. It was a unique experience, he emphasized, something rare in his line of work. "Your Dr. Hale visits a specific motel room on Mondays and Thursdays, sometimes Saturdays," he revealed. Last Thursday, he spent time with a woman named Eileen McCormick, an employee of a visiting nurse company. Despite never seeing her before, she seemed pleasant. The investigator provided her personal information and audio recordings, but couldn't capture photos due to closed curtains. Later in the day, at 6 p.m., Hale returned to the same motel and met with another woman, who turned out to be my wife. It was a shock to discover he was rendezvousing with 2 women on the same day in the same room, a routine he repeated twice a week or more. I entered the room and followed your instructions to set up audio and video recording equipment. Someone will be nearby recording what happens when Dr. Hale is inside. I handed him a disc containing footage of your wife and another woman who arrived with Dr. Hale. I expressed my gratitude. "Sam, if things go south, could this be traced back to you?" I asked seriously. "There could be serious money involved in tracking down the source of these images." "Nah," he replied confidently. "I can assure you they'd never find me unless you gave me up, but I'm cautious. You won't find any evidence tying me to those pictures or anything in the room." I instructed him to keep recording until further notice, paid him another $3,000 in cash, and left feeling uneasy. The next day, I closed our joint credit card accounts, telling Karen it was to better manage our finances and finalize the repositioning of our funds. Each week, I received a CD in the mail containing videos recorded by Sam. He used 2 cameras and presumably 2 microphones. Naturally, I watched all the tapes, but I scrutinized the ones featuring my wife carefully. Listening to every word and observing every gesture became an obsession for me. It felt like a release, and the more I watched, the more distant my feelings for her became. Physically, Dr. Hale seemed all right for his age, older than me by a good 15 to 20 years, but clearly lacking in exercise. His physique was similar to mine, with a comparable amount of body hair. I was relieved to see that he had a few extra inches on his waistline compared to me. He usually took the lead during the sessions. With all the women, he dictated what he wanted, and they complied eagerly. I couldn't help but wish my wife would show the same enthusiasm for me. After some thinking, I realized I might have played a part in our lackluster bed life. When my wife refused, I didn't push. I let her control the intimacy in our relationship. Now, Hale was making advances, and she was going along with it happily. It's simple, really. We all aim to please our partner. Perhaps it's more about my own expectations, and from what I see, they were too low. Progress on the gatehouse was going well, with just a week to go. I called the lawyer, but he was on vacation. I informed his assistant that I needed the papers by next Wednesday, as agreed. She assured me they would be ready. I was ready to file for divorce and move out of her house and her life. Our daughter was with the neighbors. We were enjoying wine on the patio the evening before her medical conference. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I tried one last time to salvage our marriage. "Do you think my wife will ever return?" I asked. "Huh? What do you mean?" she responded. "I mean you. You've been pulling away from Carrie and me for a while now. It's like you're distancing yourself from the family. I just wonder who you found to replace us, and if you plan to return," I explained. There was a long silence. Just as I was about to leave, she spoke softly. "He's a doctor at the hospital. I can't say his name, but I think we're in love. It feels real to me. You can't always tell right away, can you? Emotions are strange like that. I'll know for sure in a month or so. And no, I won't be able to let him go. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. I still love you." She fell silent, and I remained quiet too. "Chris, why aren't you saying anything? You're not done talking. You mentioned loving me, but I want to know for how long and how often. And most importantly, why? What does he offer that I don't? It's a bit complicated, but I do love you, or at least what I thought was love. It's different with him. We've been together for about a month, maybe 6 weeks. There's no specific reason why, it just happened. He's neither better nor worse than you, just different. So every time your phone rings, you're either off helping the sick and dying or Dr. Syphilis is in need of assistance. Look, give me your hand for a moment." She reached out her left hand and I took it. "Chris, don't be like this. It's not what you think. I just need to be sure, and it's only a few more weeks. Please." I held her hand with both of mine and gently removed her wedding and engagement rings. I don't think it sunk in until I took off my wedding band and placed it in her hand. "Hey, give those back. I can't be without them. They're mine." "Chris, people will notice. Give them back." "Not my problem." I took 2 coins out of my pocket, stood up, and hurled them far into the yard. In the dim light, she'd see something shiny flying through the air and assume it was $9,000 worth of jewelry. "So go find them. If you wanted to keep the marriage they symbolize, we wouldn't be having this issue. Besides, you'd be surprised how many people know what you've been up to. You and him are well known around town. So tell them. Tell them all how lucky you are to be with the big doctor. Tell them he loves you more than anything, but he's waiting for the right time to leave his wife and marry you. Sounds good to me." "Chris, let's tone down the language. How did you figure that out?" I chuckled. "Despite all your schooling, you're pretty clueless. Every married guy tells his friends he loves her and plans to leave his wife. It keeps her interested in him. Women who think they're virtuous act like it's necessary for a long-term commitment. A straightforward woman does it because it's exciting and she enjoys it, and some do it for money. Sometimes the guy actually divorces his wife. I'd say maybe 1 in 5 times because the marriage was already falling apart. And sometimes he even marries his fling of the week. That's probably also 1 in 5 times. So most of the time, about 24 out of 25 times, he breaks it off. But who knows? Maybe you and him truly love each other and will get married. Maybe both of you, who cheated on your last spouses, will be faithful in your new relationships and spend your free time dissecting corpses in the basement." She stormed off to her room, slamming doors behind her. What did she expect my reaction to be? I put together the financial reality package I planned to leave for her. It detailed all the household expenses, her income after deducting student loan and mortgage payments, taxes, car expenses, utilities, and insurance. It showed that she was in the red by $1,000 a week without considering food, gas, or anything else. I scheduled the bill payment so that on D-Day, all her bills would be covered, leaving her with almost no cash in her accounts. The next morning, she assured me once again that it was indeed a medical conference and left the house. I closed down all our shared credit cards. She still had her own for business, so she wasn't completely without money. I copied our bills and tax returns for her. I listed the contact information for the oil burner technician, lawn care person, snowplow service, and a general handyman. Looking at the tax returns, I was glad to see that for the past 3 years, despite trying to lower and hide my income, I earned more than she did. Well, maybe that was too much detail for her right now. She was gone, and I wanted her to stay gone at this point. Why give her a reason to come back? I put the tax returns aside. She would receive them eventually. The movers came at 11 a.m. on Friday. They took most of the time and truck space to move items from my workshop. I took all my uncle's furniture, some family heirlooms, my dresser, and the contents of my closet. I arranged for a cleaning service to come in and thoroughly clean the place, erasing any traces of my presence there. I packed up her financial documents in one box, along with the current bills and another box for random items found in drawers, and while cleaning. I left them on a kitchen chair, along with the signed divorce papers on the table. I also left a note on the fridge, closing the chapter of my life at 4 p.m. on Friday afternoon. My daughter and I went shopping for her new bedroom on Saturday and got her settled in at my place. The newly renovated house looked fantastic. We installed new insulated thermal pane windows that matched the old ones. The original plasterwork was restored, complete with paint and stenciling. The kitchen was restored to its original state, but with some modern upgrades. Everything got a fresh coat of paint or varnish. The crews did an excellent job. Maybe they did it out of respect for me, or maybe jobs were hard to come by, and I had a big payroll. Sunday night, Karen called me in a panic at 10 p.m. I listened for a bit and realized she found out she was bankrupt. I told her, "Hey, don't come to me with your problems. It's not my concern anymore. Take it to Dr. Syphilis. Let him comfort you and give you money." She screamed with anger, regret, and pain. "You're not making sense," I said. "I'll come over tomorrow at 7 p.m. and we can discuss this. Carrie is fine. She's with me. We can figure out custody arrangements, considering your on-call schedule. Don't call me until then." I hung up, and the phone immediately rang again. It was Karen. "Don't call Carrie either," I said. "She's already asleep, and you'll only scare her. Let me know tomorrow when you want her with you." Seems like she expected me to wait around until she found someone else. Well, I've made up my mind. Pete Q said it right. You don't appreciate something until it's gone. What did she expect me to do? Just picture her saying, "Chris, thanks for making a nice dinner. Help the kid, what's-her-name, with her homework after you finish the dishes. I know you have to be up by 6 for work, so don't wait for me. Syphilis just called, and he's really in the mood for some dirty action, and I can't keep him waiting." Saying that would definitely make any husband want to stick around. Sure thing, stupid woman. 7 p.m. rolled around. Just to annoy her, I grabbed an Italian sub from a really good Italian deli. Got crispy bread on the side so it wouldn't get soggy. I showed up late, wearing particularly dirty and sweaty work clothes and boots. Knocked on the door. The grungy clothes were just for show. I worked up a sweat doing landscaping at my new house. She looked good, wearing a low-cut blouse, a thin lace bra, a short skirt, and barefoot. She noticed the bag in my hand. "Oh, how nice. You brought something for me? I guess we're both sorry. Come on in. I made dinner." "You got it wrong. I'm not sorry. I'm glad I found out who you really are before wasting more years. We didn't talk about dinner. I brought this for myself. You do as you please. But I made a nice meal for you." I glanced at the table. "I thought you didn't cook anything. You must have just picked up pre-cooked food from the grocery. Probably just came from Syphilis." She never dressed like that for me. But what I said was, "Well, let's eat and talk about Carrie. That's what we have in common now. I'm assuming you agree on joint custody, and I wonder when you'll want her." "I don't want a divorce. This isn't my choice. It's just that this might be the real thing with Fred, and I need some time to find out. You know, if it's the real thing, right? You've said that before, but the real thing staring you in the face now is divorce. I envy your delusional state. Falling in love with someone new can be really amazing, though I have to say it hasn't exactly sharpened your mind. Don't take it the wrong way. Obviously, he's something special. What makes him so appealing? Chris, I'm not comparing him to you or vice versa. No, seriously, I'm not asking that. I want to know what attracts you to him. I promise not to get carried away. Just tell me." "Well, it's not just about the closeness. He's good at it, sure, but not exceptional from what I've experienced. Size-wise, he's average as far as I can tell. But he has this incredible scent. It's not cologne or anything. It's just his natural smell. He has a strong personality, confident and passionate. He's so considerate and kind. He listens closely and responds thoughtfully to whatever I say. With him, I feel safe. I want to make him happy. I've done whatever I thought he wanted, or I guess I did what he wanted without him even asking. He seemed to understand what I truly desired, even when I couldn't express it. In that sense, he's really perceptive. Well, best of luck on your journey. His caring manner extends beyond just bedside manners. It's a relief to have stepped out of your life, and it's probably for the best for you too. Now, you can openly embrace your love." "Chris, I never wanted a divorce. That was your idea. For heaven's sake, it's my fault. She's out of her mind. Anyway, divorce it is. Ready or not, here it comes. Let's not forget, our daughter's well-being is why we're having this conversation tonight. You know I can't always control my schedule. Why are you bringing this up? Carrie needs stability in her life. She shouldn't go to bed at your place and wake up somewhere else. She needs to know who will take her to soccer practice next Tuesday. She also needs to know where she'll be on Saturday so she can plan to play with her friends. If you want scheduled time with her, when will it be? And what's your plan for taking care of Carrie when you have her? And if Dr. Syphilis calls you out while you're with her, what will you do if you're running late? I can't give you an answer right now. This is all still new to me. Do we have to figure this out right away? As long as you're okay with not having her with you, we don't have to discuss it further. Yeah, let's just take it one day at a time. Things can change. For now, I guess you reluctantly agree that she stays with me and you visit when you can. But remember, you can't just drop in anytime. You need to call first. And if there's any change in plans, I need at least 24 hours notice. I want you to know that I expect and need you to be her mother. Let's try to be civil to each other. And if we can't, let's at least be civil in front of Carrie. I don't speak poorly about you to her and vice versa. That makes sense. As for the rest, I'm in a tough spot. I have to go along with it. At least things are going well in my other life. That's good to hear. I hope Dr. Syphilis makes you happy. I'm sorry I couldn't. But then again, I've realized it was mutual. I wish we had split without the adultery, but that's life. At least now we both have the chance for good closeness and companionship. Well, I've got to go. Chris, I didn't initiate the divorce. You did. Right, you keep bringing that up. Did you really not expect it? You've made me the fool. You set the bomb, lit the fuse, and now you're wondering why the fallout of divorce is hitting you and our family. She fought back tears successfully. I blew her a kiss and left, leaving behind the hoagie wrapper that smelled strongly of oregano and garlic on the table. Well, that's fine. We all deserve happiness, including her and me. Later in the week, I got some amazing news. About 6 months ago, I took a chance and bid to build a new middle school. It was a much bigger job than anything I had done before, and I was worried my bid would be rejected because of that. I priced it higher than I needed to because I wasn't confident in my estimate, adding an extra 15% to cover any mistakes. I ended up coming in third place. But then Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, and credit dried up. The top bidder for the school project, a big, respected contractor, got indicted for bribing city officials, so his bid was thrown out. The second bidder declared bankruptcy. Just like that, they were gone. Construction costs had also dropped about 10%, with the possibility of dropping another 10% due to the recession. Instead of starting the bidding process over, the school department asked if I could stick to my bid. Starting over would mean months of delay, and the funds might be allocated elsewhere. The city and the school board needed to create jobs by November. My challenge was getting financing since I had stashed away my cash for the divorce. I requested a week to crunch the numbers and check with my bank. Spent 2 days with my team estimating prices. Costs had already dropped by 20%. I preferred to use the local bank I usually dealt with, but they were hesitant until I explained the drop in prices. My original cost estimate was $61 million, but with the decrease, it was closer to $50 million. After verifying my numbers, they agreed to finance the project. I was ready to go big time, expecting to make over $15 million on this job. Sam called me for a meeting at Starbucks. He had sound and video evidence of 12 women, including my wife, visiting Dr. Hale regularly. Hale's behavior was remarkable. I told Sam to continue his surveillance. On Friday night, Karen called me in a panic about her bills. She couldn't afford to pay them and was overwhelmed. Carrie and I went over to help. Karen confessed she was financially struggling and couldn't make ends meet. I bluntly told her she was bankrupt and suggested she talk to a lawyer about filing for bankruptcy. Karen objected, claiming she couldn't be bankrupt as she was a doctor. I sarcastically suggested she try asking Dr. Syphilis for payment since he likely received better service from her than I ever did. Karen apologized. If he's stuck around this long, you must be satisfying him both in and out of bed. Let's talk about money, change jobs, or get a second job. Being a doctor, you'll find work easily. At the very least, I need another $3,000 a month coming in, but getting a second job isn't an option. Actually, you need closer to $4,500 just to cover the basics with no extra spending money. Don't forget about taxes. So maybe ask your partners for a raise. Look, I need you to contribute financially. Have you read the prenuptial agreement you and your dad made me sign? I don't owe you anything. Stop paying the mortgage. That's a start. Listen, if I lose my house, I'll make sure you get nothing in the divorce settlement. Karen, arguing about money isn't helping. Your best bet is to see a lawyer, declare bankruptcy, and let go of the house. It's worth about $450,000 now, but you have a $600,000 first mortgage and almost another $100,000 second mortgage on it. If the bank forgives $300,000 of the mortgage or forecloses, That $300,000 is taxable income for you. It's my best advice, but you need legal counsel. I won't give you any money. I'll pay the bills I'm obligated to, but nothing more. When we had a future together, I made sure you had enough to live the way you wanted, not me. You chose to end things. I give money to charity, which you're not. Hey, when you think about how harsh bankruptcy laws can be, remember that the money you and your dad gave to your congressman has come back to bite you. They don't show any mercy to those drowning in debt or to the poor. And here's one more piece of advice. Never start a fight if you're not prepared to handle the consequences. Regarding going after me, think twice. Thanks to your dad's connections, you can't touch me legally. Let's not go there. I think we're finished with this conversation. Let me call Carrie. She was furious. Carrie probably risked getting burned when she kissed her mom goodbye, and then the two of us went home. I got a call from her a couple of weeks later. She wanted to talk things out. Could I leave Carrie at home and come over for dinner? I agreed, and told her I'd be there at 7 p.m. after I had dinner with Carrie. The anger I felt toward her actions stayed with me and probably would for years, but I had it under control. Thanks for coming over, Chris. As you know, I'm in a bad spot financially. I'm about to lose the house, and I haven't made any payments on it since you left. Whenever the bank comes knocking, I'll be living in a tiny apartment. I ended things with him, that sweet-smelling Dr. Hale. So, you figured out you were just another conquest for him, huh? Isn't that the truth? Everyone must have known. Even you knew his name. Oh man, everybody must have known. He's been seeing another woman. I thought I loved him and believed he loved me, but boy, was I wrong. At least you're handling it well. What do you want from me now? I want my family back. We've had this talk before. You said you thought he was your true love, which meant I wasn't. When you expected me to accept being cheated on, you proved you didn't really know me. And to be honest, I realized I didn't know you either. After thinking about it, I realized I disliked you more than I loved you. Our time together is in the past, not the future. Even if Hale isn't your future, it doesn't change things between us. So let's move on from that. Chris, the other thing I want is revenge on him. I really do. He fed me lies and I wanted to get back at him. Forget about revenge. It won't make you look good no matter what happens. Doctors should be smart, stable professionals, not fools who fall for smooth talk and jump into bed. Don't expect me to ambush him in a dark room and break his fingers. Remember what the Bible says, "Revenge is mine, saith the Lord." By the way, I left some books here. Can I look for them? Sure, go ahead. They're probably where you left them. I haven't had time to read in months. That's another problem in my life. It's mostly work. I used a bag from the kitchen to gather a couple of novels, but I was really searching for the hospital anniversary book. It had group photos and names that I needed for some research. I had a different plan to deal with Hale, but I didn't tell Karen because she might get caught in the crossfire. When I got home and went through the hospital book, I identified 9 women, 2 doctors, 5 nurses, and 2 administrators, leaving 3 unknowns. I called Sam Patel and then the business lawyer. I realized I didn't enjoy being a big contractor dealing with suits all day. I preferred working closely on historic restoration projects. I asked the lawyer to find a contractor interested in buying a business with a solid 3-year contract guaranteed to make money. I offered them a 10% cut of the purchase price. As for Sam the Snoop, it cost another $3,000, but he uncovered information on the unknowns. We met at a local coffee shop instead of Starbucks. New office, huh? Sam, the coffee's better here. It belongs to a client. A friend of mine knows someone who works in the office and gave us the names of 2 people right away. Turns out they were patients of Hale. And 2 of the people we already had names for were also his patients. We made up a fake newspaper story about the 3rd person, Dr. DR, and bought a cheap laptop on Craigslist for cash. One of my guys got me a stolen credit card just in case. We found a local hotel with unsecured Wi-Fi, so I parked across the street to go online. I didn't have to pay or show any ID. I logged into a blog site and created an account in Hale's name. Then I uploaded Hale's Special Posse Part 1, pictures of the nurses with balloons and short videos of them and Hale. I set up an email account and used software to send individual emails to a group, so it looked like Hale sent them personally. No one would know who else got the emails. I sent them to both private and hospital addresses. Round 1 hit Hale hard. Karen called about 30 minutes later. Chris, you won't believe what that creep Hale did. He sent me an email with pictures of him with 5 nurses. He calls them Hale's Special Posse. I know all of them, 3 very well. My goodness, Chris, who has closeness with 5 women? What could you even do with that many? It seems unbelievable. It's probably fake. No, it's true. One at a time, but all in the same room at different times. It's sickening. He filmed it all. How could he do that? He must have incredible stamina to be with 5 women in a day. No wonder you were attracted to him. He likely installed cameras to record the closeness, maybe even broadcasting it to his car or nearby. Anyone could have recorded it. Do you recognize the room? Oh my God, it's the motel room we used. Oh no. He probably has pictures of you too. Your 15 minutes of fame might be starting soon. Someone might hurt him. He better watch out. Oh, what have I gotten myself into? Send me the link. I want to see it. Besides, I need to meet new women. I have to go. You're disgusting, Chris. The next night, the blog was taken down. I set up another one and sent new links the next day. When everyone received them individually, the rumor mill would start. Sure enough, 30 minutes after I sent it, Karen called in tears. That man, my picture, and a video of me with him. Geez, the phone keeps ringing every 5 minutes. I'm so angry I could end that a hole. All right, send me the link. Don't talk like that. Someone else might do it for you and you'll be in trouble. Remember, you ended things with him long before all this mess. I just sent the link to your email. Oh my gosh, what a loser. Let me click on the link. If she purposely sent a bad link and I act like I know what's there before seeing it, I'll be busted. She's not that sneaky, but it's better to be cautious. Yep, there it is. Well, you still look good. Maybe Playboy will feature you. Oh, thanks. Our hospital and 2 others have suspended his privileges, so he's out of work for now. The nurses are seen as his victims for now. Now they can include some doctors too. Just what I needed. At least the stereotype of a woman works in your favor this time. Poor misled young doctor throws away her marriage and reputation for a cat. All that education wasted. Screw you and the horse you rode in on. What should I do now? No pun intended, just take it easy. Avoid the spotlight. Don't give interviews or make public statements. Most of your patients won't know anything. Few will see the pictures. Your assets are nice, but many people have them. Few outside the hospital will see them and they won't pay much attention. But more importantly, think about what to say to your daughter if she finds out. That's a tough one. Dealing with Hale is a whole other story. This whole situation will make Hale leave town before it settles, so you can have your revenge without any cost or risk. When I shared Hale's scandalous photos with everyone, it proved he was involved with some of his patients. That was the end for him. He lost his medical license, faced numerous lawsuits, and his wife divorced him. He ran away from town and supposedly works for an insurance company in Texas now, maybe finding ways to deny coverage to sick people. I wonder if his situation changed his attitude. I struggled to allow myself to spend some of the money I was earning. My friend who knows about antique cars assured me it was a good investment, so with his guidance, I bought the Indian Chief motorcycle, along with another one Hale had bought for spare parts. I always considered them as parts donors and never rode one before, but it seemed like fun. I was smart enough to take lessons. Now I didn't envy my brother's toy anymore because I had the real thing. I contacted the Red Cross to see if they had any more Give Blood t-shirts. Unfortunately, they didn't. I explained that I wanted one in a small size, new or used, and offered to pay $100 by check and $20 in cash to whoever could find one. The woman I spoke with said it could be arranged, and we planned to meet on Friday night to make the purchase. She seemed like a kind person, and I told her my plan for the t-shirt. We had a good laugh and exchanged email addresses. I took Carrie out shopping, and among other things, I bought her a pair of red sneakers and gave her the t-shirt. A couple of days later, we rode on my bike to Karen's house on the eve of the foreclosure. Carrie rushed inside, sporting the t-shirt and red sneakers, shouting, "Mommy, check out Dad's motorcycle. We rode here on it. Have you ever seen one as nice as this?" Her eyes widened, and she whispered, "Oh, I did once. I looked a lot like you, actually. It was a fun ride, but it ended badly with a crash. Chris, please be careful on that thing. Karen actually sued me. Luckily, the prenuptial agreement held up, and she got nothing from me. She lost the house and declared bankruptcy. However, not all debts are forgiven in bankruptcy, so I figure she'll have to live frugally for years before she's debt-free. Being the nice guy that I am, I sent her father a $1,000 check thanking him for his idea of the prenup agreement and how it saved me a fortune. He returned the check without a word. I donated it to a liberal advocacy group in his name. As part of the bankruptcy, Karen had to submit past tax returns. For the first time, she saw how much I earned the year we divorced. She was shocked to see it was much higher than hers, not to mention the significant cash I made from selling my business. She demanded to know why I hadn't told her. I reminded her that I did show her the tax returns. Her signature was on every one of them, indicating the income. However, she was so convinced that she was the successful doctor and I was just a handyman. She assumed most of our income came from her practice. It's funny how we can look at something without truly seeing it. Anyway, both you and your dad were worried that I was marrying you for your money. I think you liked the idea of being the breadwinner. It gave you a sense of power. Look on the bright side. You're young, attractive, and as I, along with much of the world, have noticed, you're doing better now than you ever were when you were with me. I'm sure you'll have plenty of potential partners to choose from. A year later, I sold the motorcycle. It was enjoyable, but I wasn't riding it enough to become skilled, and honestly, I didn't enjoy it that much. However, my friend was right. It turned out to be a good investment. I sold the parts bike for what I paid for both bikes, and I sold the good bike for double what I paid for both of them.